friends. Hello, hi, how are you? I hope you guys are having an amazing day today. Hello, hi, welcome. So today's video we are doing an evolution of, and this one is on somebody that I think this can be really interesting. And I actually think that it's on Haley Pham. You saw that from the title and the thumbnail, but it's on Haley Pham. And I actually think this is a really interesting situation because when I'm filming this video, they still have not addressed probably one of the bigger scandals they've ever had, which is the fact that they secretly got married during COVID and didn't tell anybody and nobody wore masks. So that's happening right now and they haven't addressed it yet, but I think they're going to. So I just want to make that very clear right now that they very well could address this. Knowing my luck, it'll be an hour before I upload this video. They will have addressed the wedding thing. So as of right now of filming, they haven't addressed it, but I think that makes this video kind of interesting because I think Haley Pham in particular is at a really sort of weird point in her career right now. And after sort of analyzing her entire channel and analyzing everything, I feel like she's at a really, really interesting point. And I'm very interested to see, I feel like the way that she addresses this wedding situation will kind of be a defining moment. So I didn't want to wait to film this, but obviously I'll speculate at the end. But I just want to say this right off the bat because I feel like I'm worried if they post something soon, people are going to think that this is a response to her video. It's not. This is a different thing. But hi, if you're here, please stay. Maybe you'll enjoy the video. Candle of the day today is a Warm Ocean Breeze from Bath & Body Works. Very nice. Clean scent, very good. And today's video, before we jump into the actual content, today's video has a sponsor. Thank you so much to one of my recurring sponsors, who I love those, from ExpressVPN. So let's roll the little intro for them. Today's video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is an incredible service that I started using last year to help better protect my data and protect myself from hackers and people trying to sell my information. I love knowing that when I'm connected to ExpressVPN, every piece of data going in and out of my devices is going through this secure encrypted tunnel and cannot be seen by the government, by hackers, by internet service providers, not even by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN also has 24/7 customer support and is incredibly easy to use. They let me change my online location so it looks like I'm in a different country, which allows me to unlock a whole new world of TV shows and movies. I recently learned that one of my favorite movies, which is Crazy Rich Asians, is not on the Netflix in the US. However, if I switch to Canada, all of a sudden, it's a full-blown movie night for me. If you're interested in trying ExpressVPN, find out how you can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by visiting expressvpn.com/SmokeyGlow or clicking the link in the description down below. ExpressVPN is a wonderful service that I have personally been using and really love. And yeah, definitely go check them out down below. Great service, great perks. Thank you so much again to ExpressVPN. You can be sure to check out the link down below if you're interested in trying them. And yeah, thank you for the continued support. It's amazing. Okay, so let's jump right into the evolution of Haley Pham. Haley Pham is a 20-year-old YouTuber based out of Austin, Texas, who actually started on the platform when she was literally 12 years old. Most of her content from that time is deleted. She only has one video up, which is actually what I'm assuming is the first video on her channel, which is called the Simple Pink Lip Makeup Tutorial, where she put on lipstick. And this video was uploaded in 2012. Her initial name was SodaPop738, which is very much obviously she was a literal child. But the video is actually really cute to watch. I think what's so funny about that very first video from when she was a kid is it's just so interesting to see the impact that bigger influencers at that time had on children. It's almost like a time capsule of how children were reacting to the kind of Zoellas of the world. Her video is so stereotypical beauty guru, from the voiceover to the demonstration of how to put on makeup to the music that's playing in the background. It's very clear she just wanted to make content that she saw her favorite beauty gurus making. Haley obviously doesn't have any content after this 2012 video. I'm assuming that she deleted or privated most of those videos because she had videos reacting to that content on her channel. So I'm assuming that she still has access to them somehow. She just doesn't have them live on her channel anymore. But I would say that Haley's sort of rebrand into kind of becoming the Haley Pham that we know today started in 2016. And the the only reason I really bring up the 2012 video, because it's not really that important to like her life story, the only reason I really bring it up is because I think that Haley Pham represents this sort of generation of kids who grew up watching and loving YouTube. And I feel like she, at the end of the day, despite everything we're about to talk about that happens with her, and despite her whole story, at the end of the day, she loves YouTube and like loves creating content. And you can tell that the people that she looks up to in life are YouTubers. The people that she's sort of idolizing are YouTubers, and not like how I grew up idolizing like celebrities. Like I wanted to be Avril Lavigne. Like she's not like that. She grew up idolizing these bigger YouTubers and kind of mapping her content around them. Now, Haley's first real video on her channel after this 2012 one is a 2016 video she uploaded that was a video snippet from one of her dance competitions. Now, after this dance video was posted, Haley kind of has a really interesting trajectory. She had a bunch of kind of false starts on YouTube. So she had the one channel, the Soda Pop channel, where she was doing makeup tutorials, and that never really took off. And then it seemed like she was posting her dance highlight reels for a little while, and that never really took off. But then she has the sort of start of the Haley Pham channel, and that is what takes off for her. And in January of 2016, she uploaded a video titled DIY Jelly EOS Lip Balm Gummy Bear Flavored. And this video is literally just her doing gummy bear flavored DIY lip balm, but the video has over 1 million views. And she was not really seriously making content at this point. Like, it's one of the first videos that she has on her channel. I'm assuming she had some other ones that she deleted, but this is still clearly a very early video for her that absolutely blew up, like got so many views, and I think was sort of her jump start into the YouTube content that she started to create after the fact. And the reason I find Haley's content in particular, especially her early content, to be so interesting is because she was only like 15 years old at this time, beginning January of 2016. Yeah, she was only 15 years old at this time, and her content is incredibly well edited, incredibly well produced. You can tell that she was pulling inspiration from other lifestyle YouTubers at the time. So she had the kind of stereotypical like lifestyle influencer intro cards, and she had the sort of stereotypical lifestyle influencer editing. But regardless, for being a 15-year-old, her content was super well produced. You didn't really have those sort of awkward moments. She knew how to time them right. They were well thought out. They were well executed. And honestly, something that I find to be so interesting is that Haley has a really natural presence on YouTube, a really natural presence in front of the camera. Most YouTubers, when you watch their first or even their first few videos, their presence is really awkward. It takes a little bit of time to sort of be able to feel comfortable talking to a camera. That's not something that happens easily for a lot of people because it is weird. Like, it's super weird. But Haley really does have this sort of like natural way of just speaking to the camera like she would talk to a friend. And I think that that sort of characteristic of being so comfortable in front of the camera to start with was a huge reason her channel started to be so successful in the beginning. Now, Haley had grown a decent following in her first couple of months on YouTube, and she was actually getting brand deals from a very early stage in her content. One of the first videos I watched from her from back in 2016 actually had a brand deal on it, and I was like, okay. Flex. And something I found really interesting about these brand deals that she was doing in her early content was that she was just naturally very good at them. Again, like, I can't imagine being 15. I can barely do ad reads. You saw the one I just did. I can barely do ad reads as an adult and make it sound like normal and natural. And Haley did a fantastic job at 15 years old of really selling you apps. She didn't disclose a lot of these sponsorships, which I'm letting go of because it was 2016 and the internet was like the wild, wild west. But she wasn't disclosing the sponsorships, which I do find a little shady. However, she was very natural at these sponsorships, just talking about apps and things like that in a way that you wouldn't even know they were sponsored if it wasn't for the fact that she had links in her description pointing to them being sponsored. And I think what's so interesting about that is not like, oh, I think she was scamming people. I think what's interesting about that is that it's almost like she knew from the very beginning that YouTube could be this sort of legitimate business for her. And I mean, in 2016, we were starting to see career YouTubers, which hadn't really been a thing before then. But you could tell that she was taking this super seriously, from the way that she did brand deals and, you know, really sold products, to the consistency in which she uploaded videos, to her editing, to her concepts. She was treating this like a business from a very young age and really treating it like something she wanted to grow and pursue. Even going so far as to like filming videos when she would openly say like, yeah, I feel really sick today, or yeah, I don't feel so good. Like, she had a lot of discipline, especially in the beginning with her YouTube content, to obviously try to sort of grow her channel. Some of her earlier content really revolved around her being a dancer. That was kind of her main main shtick was that she did dance. And also, she had series on her channels like Plan with Pham, which was just her doing kind of bullet journaling, planning stuff, typical teenage stuff. Now, by the summer of 2016, she had hit almost 200,000 subscribers, and while her fan, that's kind of a pretty small YouTuber, especially in the grand scheme of everything, her fan base seemed to be very loyal. Like, her views were really good, and her comments, a lot of times with these bigger YouTubers, their videos have really good engagement because people have gone back in previous years and blown up the videos watching them. But most of the comments from these videos were at the time she posted them. It seemed like even though her audience was a little bit smaller, it was super engaged and super into what she was doing. She had kind of a loyal fan base from the start. I honestly think that her being a dancer really contributed to a lot of her earlier growth, because without that dancing content, I don't think that a lot of her videos were hyper original. She's definitely pulling ideas from other people and kind of doing the standard lifestyle stuff. But because she was a dancer and she was making all this content about being a dancer, that was really a niche that she had that was helping her get into the algorithm and kind of blow up her channel. Now, at the end of the summer of 2016, Haley started doing more story time content, which I can only assume was sort of inspired by the Tana Mongeau-esque story time craze that was happening, because her videos had very Tana Mongeau-like titles in them. And her first story time that did really well, it gained over about 500,000 views, was literally a story about her getting her period in a white dance costume. The video was actually really funny. Like, I watched it and I was kind of expecting it to be cringe or whatever, but it was funny. It was just like a teen girl talking about what a lot of teen girls go through, which is getting your period for the first time and it being incredibly awkward and uncomfortable. And honestly, watching that video, I kind of understood and realized why so many people liked Haley in the first place, because she was super down to earth, super relatable. She didn't make things awkward or weird, or if she did, it was in a comedic way. And she's talking about this story that like happens to all of us, but she's being so open about it. And I feel like that openness and willing to share was another reason why her channel did so well. Now, basically for the rest of 2016, Haley continued to post this type of content. She posted like a ton of videos, especially in the summer. You could tell that when she wasn't in school, she was posting videos pretty much daily on her main channel and also on her vlog channel. We're gonna get to the vlog channel in a minute because she deleted everything, so I couldn't really look into it, but I know snippets of what happened. Now, one thing that was also a little bit different about Haley, not only was she a dancer, but also she was incredibly religious and had a very strong sort of faith that she talked about pretty openly on her channel. Now, I am not like a super religious person, but I also am not gonna knock somebody for being religious or being open about their faith. I think that's perfectly fine, and I think a lot of people really related to that faith-based content that she was making. It seemed like she gained a lot of subscribers that way. But I do want to point out her faith and her religion, because I do think that down the line, some of her viewpoints that were sort of guided by religion ended up getting a lot of criticism. So later down the line, it did sort of come across as judgmental or uninformed when she was talking about certain topics solely from this religious perspective. Now, in 2017, Haley's content was pretty similar to her early content in 2016, but she had kind of fine-tuned things a little bit more to make it more every video that she was uploading, her audience was probably going to be interested in it. She kind of cut out those Plan with Pham videos and stopped doing them because they weren't really pulling in any views. And she was also focusing on making less content, but putting out content that had better quality. Haley was still making this sort of dance related content and was occasionally posting pictures of her dance routines, but she was also steering away from that a little bit more into these more like parody videos, challenge videos, story time videos, things that were a little bit more personal and less dance focused. Now, throughout 2016 and 2017, like I mentioned before, Haley had a few videos go somewhat viral, like hit 1 million views. Like she had the EOS lip balm video, she had a morning dance routine video hit 1 million views. But for the most part, her view count stayed in the sort of 100,000 range on YouTube. She wasn't pulling in like 1 million views a video, and she also wasn't blowing up like crazy. Her subscriber growth was happening in these sort of ebbs and flows. So she would have one video do really well, hit 1 million views, and she would gain a lot of subscribers. And then she would have periods where she was still getting decent views, but she wasn't really growing at a rapid rate. Now, this makes her very different from a lot of other bigger YouTubers that I've covered, because a lot of them had these sort of big growth spurts and then just continued to grow. Like, it never stopped. It seemed like it was this endless up and up that was happening. But Haley, because she had this more organic growth, it seemed like she was cultivating a following that was very loyal to her. They weren't just subscribing because they saw one video that they liked. They were subscribing and then watching all of her other content. And I think that this was sort of a positive and a negative for her because she had obviously a very engaged fan base, which was getting her consistent views, which was helping grow her channel. Like, all of that was a good thing. Also, this group of people, this relatively large group of people who were incredibly invested in her content, were also incredibly invested in the life and sort of personality of a 16 or 17-year-old. And I think you could probably see the problem with that, which is that she's going to grow and change and evolve into not the way that she was when she was 16 and 17. The majority of us don't stay the same. Thank God for people like me. We don't stay the same personality that we had when we were 16 or 17. So while she had this very invested group of followers, they were invested in her as she was when she was 16. And so of course, as she got older, it's kind of an inevitable thing that was going to happen, that those people were either going to grow with her or they were going to grow to sort of dislike the person she was becoming. Now, in January of 2018, she posted her first ever massive viral video. It's still, I believe, one of the most viewed videos on her channel, and it is called Testing Stripper Life Hacks for Shaving My Bikini Line. And this video has over 10 million views. So here's the thing. Again, this video, like, it's totally just like a normal random teenage girl trying to figure out how to shave your bikini line. I think the thing that people either love or hate about Haley, regardless of which way you fall, is that she is just so open. Like, she's not afraid to go there on those types of topics. She's not afraid to like get into it when it comes to those types of things, which I personally see as a good thing. I think talking about any type of stuff related to like puberty is always going to be a good thing. Like normalizing not knowing how to do certain things, normalizing getting your period for the first time, normalizing all of those things is always going to be a positive. I actually thought this video was super funny. It was just really interesting to me that like that of all videos is the one that blew up for her, because if you look at that video and then watch all of her other content, that one is kind of an outlier. It was like a random thing that she did just like for funsies, obviously, and not really anticipating it to go the way that it did. So that was really interesting. I think she gained sort of, I don't like to call them dead followers because that sounds really morbid, but I think she gained a lot of followers that maybe stayed subscribed but like weren't watching her content all the time, which is why I think she's a channel with like 2 million subscribers who maybe doesn't always pull in the most views. So after this video sort of blew up in 2018, her views definitely increased a lot and her engagement increased, and she stopped posting dance videos. She still posted them here and there, but her channel definitely became a lot less about dance and a lot more about sort of random lifestyle vlogging content, just like doing kind of whatever she wants. And here's the thing is that, and I wouldn't like say, oh, Haley, you should like continue to do dance even if your passion's not in it just for the sake of your YouTube content. However, I will say, I think that without the dance aspect, her content sort of became easily traceable. And here's what I mean by that. Her 2016, 2017 content that was story times and stuff like that was very obviously inspired by like the Alicia Marie's and Miss Remy Ashton's and also the Tana Mojos. It was like a little bit of that. And then in 2018, her more random vlog style inspired content was very obviously inspired by Emma Chamberlain. Without that sort of dancer aspect to her, she kind of became very similar to a lot of other girls on YouTube who were uploading very similar content, basically trying to reach the same fame that people like Tana and Emma had achieved. And while I think Haley is actually a very good content creator, her content has really good concepts, she executes them well, her editing is very good, her thumbnails are great. I think the reason she never really reached YouTube sort of notoriety is because her content wasn't the most original. It was just kind of her putting her spin on other people's content style, and I think that really, really stunted her growth a little bit. Now, in the summer of 2018, she did meet Ryan Trahan, who at the time they started dating and then they got engaged and now they're allegedly married. I'm not going to talk too much about their relationship. Really, only I'm going to talk about it as it pertains to Haley and her content. But I do think it's important to note that like they met. She put up a vlog of them meeting at VidCon back in 2018, and he started sort of being featured on her channel more after that. And I think honestly, they kind of branded themselves, and this is a little weird because I don't know if other people would have considered them this, but I think they thought of themselves this way, especially based on watching their family channel. They definitely branded themselves as sort of a YouTube power couple. Like, I think because they were both kind of up and coming, really popular YouTubers, they both were on a really good trajectory with YouTube where their channels were kind of blowing up. They were getting really good views, really high engagement. I think that was kind of the strategy they took. Like, they definitely were very much like a YouTube couple where they were always making content together and all of that stuff. Now, I think 2018 was kind of a pivotal year for Haley on YouTube. I think number one, she's talked pretty openly about the fact that 2018 was sort of the first year that she actually started making like really good money on YouTube. So that obviously changes your life in a lot of ways. And also in that same VidCon vlog where she met Ryan, she talked about how she had made a really large decision about her future, which ended up being that she was deciding not to go on to college after high school. She also made a video talking about how YouTube almost got her kicked out of her school, her high school, and basically how like she got in trouble for posting a YouTube video where she made a joke about cheating. She got kicked out of the National Honor Society, and that was a really kind of traumatizing thing for her, and how YouTube has kind of just taken over her life, and she was kind of leaving behind all of these other things she had previously really cared about, like dance, like school, things like that. Now, just as a side note here, I tend to try not to speculate like too much in these videos because I never really want to come across as like I know her in real life, because I absolutely do not know this girl. But one thing I will say, after watching a lot of her content, if I had to speculate about her at all, the one thing I would really say and would wager on is when Haley does things, she wants to be good at them. She wants them to be successful. She wants what she does to be a success. And that's why her content from the get was so well organized, so well put together. That's why she really threw all of her sort of time and energy into this content, is because if she was going to do it, she wanted it to be good. I almost notice a little bit of like from one perfectionist to another, like I can relate to her. Like I also feel that way about my videos. So I could almost sense that in her, where it's like you want it to be good. If you're gonna do it, you want it to be great. You want to put your time into it and you want it to be a success. However, she has this sort of like hustle mindset to her, this sort of like, I am a businesswoman, like I'm going to create an empire mindset about her. And I think that's for a lot of reasons. Number one, and I think this is really important to talk about because I think this is why a lot of her motivation sometimes might seem monetarily driven. It seems like she grew up sort of economically disadvantaged, and she talked a lot about how her mom had to work multiple jobs in order to get her to be able to do dance. She talked a lot about how when her mom lost her job, she financially supported her mother because her mother did so much for her. So I think a lot of people sometimes get the impression of her just because of how she acts sometimes, that she's this like spoiled rich kid who came from like a rich family. But that is absolutely not, seemingly based on her telling of it, her story. I think she's just a kid who came from a place of financial instability in her life. And when she started being able to have financial stability, she wanted to keep that for as long as possible. And I think this especially pops out in 2018 because she talks about how in 2018, not only did her parents get a divorce, which is a pretty traumatizing thing for any child to go through, especially a 17-year-old whose entire life is being watched on the internet. It's a tough thing to go through. And also her mom lost her job. So Haley became sort of the sole breadwinner for her family. And as somebody who seemingly liked to succeed at things, and now all of a sudden she was also the sole provider of her family, I think that that moment and taking on that responsibility of also not only providing for herself, but providing for her mother kind of changed the dynamic of her channel a lot. And I also think trying to navigate the sort of trauma of that while also still being this like happy-go-lucky, relatable, funny teen, like I think that was a really pivotal moment that I don't see a lot of people talking about when the conversation around Haley is happening. I do think YouTube went to her head, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment, but just to kind of end this segment, I think that the 2018, where her channel started to blow up and her personal life started to kind of fall apart, I think played a big role in why things turned out the way that they did. I think this sort of personal trauma was really played out in her content as well, because in 2018, her content was absolutely just kind of all over the place. It was super sporadic, didn't really know what was going on. She was just kind of throwing content at the wall to see what stuck. I think that was really evident to her fan base, especially her super loyal kind of diehard subscribers that had been there from the beginning being like 2 years ago, but still, the people that had been around for a while were starting to sort of call her out. You can see in the comments that instead of overwhelming positivity, it was a lot of like, this seems fake. Again, while her videos were doing well, they just kind of seemed like the polar opposite of who she was in 2016 and 2017. Haley actually kind of addressed this in early 2019, which I'm finding more and more that lifestyle influencers have to address their shift in content a lot more. This is a whole other video, but I'm just finding that like lifestyle influencers in particular and vloggers have to address the changes so much more than other people. Anyway, she addressed everybody's concerns in an early 2019 video where basically she talked about how sort of hate online had started to really get to her. She felt like she was constantly pivoting to try and please other people because she just like didn't know what to do. And she was kind of facing this sort of content identity crisis. And the comments and the feedback on that video were actually super well received. However, I think that this sort of content identity crisis that happened in 2018 had a sort of lasting impact on her channel. And I'll tell you why. I think because some of this more sporadic content was still doing well for her. She was gaining a sort of new audience doing this sporadic, random vlog style, challenge style content, right? But she also still had her old audience from sort of her dance, typical lifestyle days, right? So she was creating these sort of two separate fan bases that wanted two separate things. And whenever you have a channel like that where you're splitting your audience down the middle, it's going to lead to sort of inconsistency in views, inconsistency in what people like, and it's going to confuse you as a content creator because some people are going to tell you that the content you're creating is horrible and the other group of people are going to tell you it's amazing. So I think this only further added to this identity crisis she was going through as a content creator. Now, I think 2019, Haley did sort of find this happy middle ground for a little bit at least. That was a mixture of this more vloggy, relatable content while still doing these more challenges and lifestyle videos. However, I think that the problem with this content, which I feel bad because I feel like in every new phase of content, I'm like, well, the problem, but really this is the truth. Like the problem with this type of content was even though she was doing these sort of standard stereotypical things, and even though it was very like relatable content, I think that her personality had changed so much that it was almost off-putting to watch those videos because Haley had become somewhat, she's 18 at this point, she'd become somewhat obsessed with like aesthetics and vibes, very caught up in sort of the influencer world and everything to do with being this like stereotypical influencer, which I think is really interesting because we do see that happen a lot with this lifestyle genre. But I think it was interesting because normally that happens when you move to LA. That's kind of the whole thing. It's like, it's a joke. Oh, you're moving to LA, like you're gonna sell out. She was sort of turning into that, but not living in LA just because she was like sitting in Texas watching LA from afar and almost turning into what she is consuming, turning into the content that she's consuming. Now, I feel like I have to preface everything I'm about to say with this, which is that everything I just described is like completely normal for a teenager to go through. Like most teenagers go through phases of being obsessed with like aesthetics and like she's 18. So I'm not trying to be too hard on her about this change because I feel like what I've described to you in the last 40 minutes of this sort of change in personality, which resulted in a change of content, is the change from being 16 years old to being almost 19 years old. And that's a big leap, a big change to make. That is a loud train. I don't even have a train station near my house. What? However, even though that is sort of the normal thing that you would go through as you're growing up, she was doing it in front of millions of people. She was making money by creating this content and people were noticing that change. So even despite all of that, even though that's obviously like normal teen stuff, like despite all of that, it still was her drastically changing her content from this sort of really dedicated audience she had built when she was doing dance. And this was all very new and different and jarring for them. And on top of that, it was feeling like she was sort of getting sucked into this influencer world and she was changing and she was becoming very materialistic. And all of this came to a point in September of 2019 when she uploaded a video complaining about her 1-year anniversary trip she took with her boyfriend to Greece. I've already made a whole video on this whole situation. It's actually one of my most viewed videos on my channel. I think it's the second most viewed behind the Gabby video. So I've already made a video about this whole thing, but I'll give you kind of the cliff notes if you haven't seen, or if you want to watch that video, I'll link it down below. But basically, Haley made a video, kind of rich people problems is the best way to put it. Like she was just venting about how difficult her trip to Italy was, and obviously a lot of people were like, we don't care. Like a lot of people, I feel like sometimes it's just like read the room. Like there's so much happening, there's so much going on. It's not your fault that that's happening, but like nobody cares that your trip to Italy wasn't how you expected it to be because you planned it based around Instagram. She basically went to Santorini, Greece and said that it was nothing like Instagram, which is like, yes, obviously. And then she also said that she wouldn't recommend going to Greece because it had a poor economy, which was, not a great thing to say. And then she talked about how she had to pay like a ton of money to get a flight back home because she booked the flight the wrong days, which is like, yeah, that sucks, but also like it's your fault. Like your audience, I think the big problem with influencers sometimes, a side note, is just like they genuinely like don't get that. I think that they sometimes get so out of touch that they don't realize that like her audience paid for that trip basically by supporting her. So they don't care about like the way that things went wrong necessarily, right? So right off the bat, I think that video was a little bit in that sense, but that's not like a huge deal. We see influencers doing stuff like that all the time, whatever. But in that video, besides insulting the people of Greece and insulting their country and saying it was like not a good country because of the bad economy or something like that, besides all of that, she also then, when she got home from Greece, she had some sort of like STI symptoms going on. And so she went to an urgent care, and the urgent care didn't know what was wrong with her. So she went on to insinuate that at urgent care, they like didn't care about her because they weren't real doctors. They were just physician's assistants. And then went on to say that once she could go to a real doctor who wasn't a physician's assistant, that they were able to properly diagnose her, which she had this like very rare disease that like not a lot of people would be able to diagnose. Anyway, basically went to an urgent care expecting them to get a full medical history, which is just like not how an urgent care works. And then on top of that, in that video, she talked about how because she got this sort of vaginal disease, she felt like, because I really feel like I need to explain this how she explained it. She felt like because she was waiting until marriage, it was unfair of God to give her this vaginal disease because she was being pure and waiting until marriage, so it didn't seem fair to her. She felt like she didn't deserve to have something go wrong with her vagina because she was waiting till marriage. So again, you know how I mentioned like how she was really religious and how that kind of turned around to make her seem kind of judgmental because she had this like mindset. A big thing on her channel and a big thing she talked about dating Ryan was that they were both waiting till marriage and that they were both gonna, you know, not have sex until marriage, which is totally fine. To each their own, like make your own decisions. But that doesn't make you better than other people to the extent that you shouldn't have things go wrong with your vagina because you made that decision. So like people who did choose to have sex before marriage almost deserved to get these UTIs or things wrong with their vaginas. It was weird. It was super weird, came off super judgmental, and she got pretty ruthlessly dragged for this. And this is kind of her first really big drama. And she did make an apology to this video and everything. And honestly, I think all that drama did, instead of sort of like almost be a reality check, which it could have been this reality check of like, oh my God, I'm getting way too sucked into this like influencer culture. I'm getting too sucked into everything. Like I need to just like back it up for a second. Instead of that happening, it was very much like the opposite, where I think it just confused her even more. And I also think it made her really scared. I think she just didn't know how to proceed on her channel. I think that what this drama sort of did was really scare her in the sense of especially finances, because I'm sure when it was happening, I actually saw on her social blade, she lost a fair amount of subscribers, and this did sort of impact her views for a little while. People were really just kind of sick of her at this point. And I think that this sort of made her realize that she needed to diversify her income if she wanted to make sure that the money she was making now stayed consistent. I think it taught her that YouTube was a little bit more fickle than she had once thought. And I think that this even further pushed this sort of like hustle mentality in her, because after all this happened, she really started opening all of these businesses and doing all of these random things that we're about to talk about. That really, I think that this really, the Greece thing, if you think about it, if you can pinpoint a moment in her channel where she really started to go down this path of just, it feels like sort of randomness and mistakes, it was really the Greece video was sort of, and the backlash she got from it was sort of pinpointing all of that. It's also important to note that during 2019, Haley started a vlog channel with her boyfriend Ryan, and it was the Trey family vlogs. Those vlogs, I think, also were contributing to kind of the hate that Haley was getting online, because they made videos. I believe the second video on the channel is literally them like looking at $1 million mansions when she's only like 18 years old. And while I think some people looked at that and were like, wow, that's so motivating, good for you, you're 18, you can buy a mansion, I think a lot of other people took it as like, okay, you're buying a mansion with the guy you've been dating for just a little over a year, you're 18 years old, and you're looking at like $1 million homes. Like that's a lot. That's a lot for an 18-year-old. And I think that while I'm not going to sit here and like judge her for those decisions, because if like she can financially afford it, good for her. At the same time, I think that it was again just like that off-putting thing where her fan base fell in love with her videos and her content because she was just like a chill girl in her bedroom, and now all of a sudden she's buying $1 million mansions with a guy she like barely knows and like just started dating. At the end of 2019, Haley started a clothing company called Retro Reprise, which pretty much from the start got really roasted. The clothing, it's not my taste personally, and I don't think it was a lot of people's tastes. In her sort of video where she announced the clothing brand, she had to turn off the comments because the response was just so poor, and the clothing pretty instantly went on sale. She picked these sort of weird designs. She said that she modeled it from like one of her friend's grandmother's clothing or something like that, that she found this really retro sweater and just thought it was so cool and wanted to make it into this print and sell it, but it just was really a miss. Like nobody really wanted to buy this stuff, and this project and business was pretty much abandoned shortly after starting it. Again, this is another reason, I hate to be repetitive, but this is why I sort of have that theory that if Haley's not like good at something, if she's not succeeding, she just kind of like moves on to the next thing and like abandons it and doesn't want to do it anymore, because there was the opportunity to push through with that brand and sort of try to grow it in a different direction, like make new clothing designs or something that you would do if you were like a serious business owner and you had a passion for this business. You would like try to make it work first before just having that one initial sort of failed launch and then just abandoning it. But she didn't do that. She just sort of immediately abandoned it. Now, the video right after that launch was another sort of addressing everything style video, which she had made a few of at this point, basically being like, I have changed, I've let everything get to my head, I know this, I hear you guys, I see your concerns, and I'm gonna change my content as a result of that. But then she really didn't. So I think it's really interesting with Haley is that she does seem to have this sort of self-awareness and understand people's concerns enough so that she can verbalize their concerns and like verbalize why people are worried. But I don't know if she actually fully internalizes it enough to make the sort of changes, and this is the other thing too, she doesn't have to make those changes. Like she can totally be obsessed with aesthetics and all and designer things. Like she can do all of those things and be this sort of, you know, not as relatable person. Like that's her prerogative to do that. I think it's interesting that she won't pick a lane. It's almost like she wants to still be that like relatable teen girl in her bedroom, but she also wants to be this like businesswoman, serious influencer who's like in, you know, the LA lifestyle. She wants the best of both worlds. So she tells her audience, she hears them, but then she doesn't change anything. And I think what she's having a hard time with even now is you can't really have the best of both worlds. You kind of have to pick one. At the start of 2020, her content was pretty similar to 2019. It was just kind of like these challenge type videos, random vlog style videos, but she also started incorporating a lot more interior design content. And then in May of 2020, she announced that her and Ryan were engaged. There was a lot of criticism for this engagement. I'm gonna start this sort of thing off by saying, personally, I don't care that they got engaged at a young age. Do I understand the criticism that like they're influencers and they're promoting marriage at a young age, which statistically is not the best thing in the world? Yes. Do I think that influencing goes as far as like marriage and you have to decide when to marry somebody based on your influence? I don't think influencing should go that far. I don't think the responsibility of an influencer should go that far, personally. I did understand some of the critiques of people who were saying, well, they might only be getting married at such a young age because of sort of religious pressure, which is a huge thing. And also, a lot of people pulled up videos of Haley from when she was like, you know, 16, being like, I would never get married at 18 or 19. And then, of course, here she is getting married at like 18 or 19. Ryan and Haley did respond to a lot of this criticism and hate, and basically were just like, we're getting married, like, shut up. And honestly, I understand the criticism, but I also just think if they're gonna get married, like, let them get married. It's really not, I think marriage is one of those things where it's like, it's kind of not your business as long as it's two consenting adults, which in this scenario it was. I also think as far as pulling up old clips of her when she was younger, being like, oh, I'd never do that, and then she ended up doing it, as far as that, which that happens to Haley and a lot of these other YouTubers that start at a very young age, this happens to them pretty frequently, where they kind of look like hypocrites. This happens to any YouTuber, actually. If you're in the YouTube space for long enough, you're gonna look like a hypocrite at some point, because probably 5 years ago, you could probably find videos of me 5 years ago contradicting myself today. It's just sort of the hazard of being a YouTuber, is that as human beings, think about the way you used to think about things even like a year ago and how you think about things now. It's probably changed a little bit. But unfortunately for YouTubers, it's sort of immortalized forever as like, you said this one thing and now you're changing your mind. And I I mean, obviously if your opinions were like harmful or racist or something like that, then yeah, of course we need to have a conversation about that. But if your opinion is just like, I don't think I'm gonna get married at 19, and then you do, you're not really harming anybody other than potentially yourself. The real reason that the engagement kind of had an impact on her channel specifically, her views started going way down. I think that Haley kind of presents herself as a very mature person, but also is like not the most mature person in a lot of ways. So I think it's a little bit confusing for people. I think people just don't really know how to feel about her. She's kind of a polarizing person in that way. So obviously the Grease drama and this engagement drama had kind of made her take a hit to her main channel. And also during this time, she decided to abandon the retro reprise kind of, you know, business that she had started, that she had made a big deal about starting. She abandoned that and then started this podcast with her friend, which this podcast, I could do a whole separate video on the podcast. The podcast got her in a lot of trouble for a lot of reasons, biggest of which being that she talked about birth control in a very uneducated light, which again, I'm going to keep pointing out the religious aspect to it was that I think her religion kind of had her thinking one specific way about birth control, and that wasn't really the most educated perspective to have. Made her come across as very uninformed and judgy, and she was also just giving so much misinformation to her very kind of young, impressionable audience. Then she sort of abandoned the podcast and then started doing this house flipping thing with Ryan, where they both announced that they were basically going to be the next Chip and Joanna Gaines, and that they had bought this house in Texas that they were going to be flipping into an Airbnb, and they were going to be documenting the process on their channels. And then on top of that, they also started selling mugs and pottery and stuff. So it was like another new business happening, and it was all these new projects and ventures and businesses happening kind of all at one time. And it felt like nothing, again, it felt like nothing was sticking. Like it was kind of just like throwing stuff at a wall, seeing what'll stick. And honestly, at this point in time, in 2020, going into 2021, this whole kind of recent content, it feels like every video that she puts on her main channel is sponsored, which wouldn't really be a problem. Obviously, I'm fine with sponsorships. I did one. Like, obviously, I'm cool with that. I think most audiences are chill with sponsorships, but I think it was the fact that most of her videos were sponsored. And then on top of that, she was also pushing whatever business of the month she was starting and whatever sort of project of the month was happening. And there wasn't really any real content left. In a 15-minute video, you'd have maybe 6 minutes of unadvertised content, and everything else started to feel like this massive ad. And also, the sponsorships she was doing weren't like kind of ad reads or things like that. They were like integrated parts of the video. Towards the end of 2020, it definitely seemed like she started losing interest in her main channel content and was putting a lot of her focus into the more business side of everything. I also think it's very important to note in the entire context of Haley Pham's channel is that on top of this main channel, she also had a vlog channel. The problem with the vlog channel and why I can't really include a lot of clips and stuff like that from this channel is because she basically deleted most of the videos. Like, they're pretty much all gone. I went to go look and they're just gone. And there is a new video that she literally just posted being like, why I left my vlog channel. And basically her reasoning is like she wasn't really liking it anymore and she was really busy. But then she went to Walmart and saw all the brands that she had worked with, and so then she decided that she had a passion for making vlogs again. And then she did a haul of all the PR she bought. It was really weird. I think Haley is like not fully getting the criticism of her right now. But anyway, so she really abandoned this vlog channel, deleted a ton of the old stuff. I think probably due to hate and probably due to people pulling old clips of her saying things. But either way, her vlog channel is really gone and you can't really look into the evolution of that. But she did have a vlog channel that she had abandoned up until literally a couple hours ago. Now, I also think another big thing that happened was in October of 2020, a YouTuber uploaded a video titled Haley Pham and Ryan Trahan Need to Press Pause. This video was super long. It was a couple hours long. And honestly, he really dove deep into more so Ryan than Haley, and also really dove deep into their relationship and sort of criticizing the things that they had made public about their relationship, sort of criticizing the life decisions that they had made, especially in the context of getting married. And personally, I just wasn't a big fan of that video, just because I think there's a difference between like looking at content and, you know, doing this type of video where you're like analyzing content. I think there's kind of a difference between doing that and then also doing it in the way to try to persuade someone to make like a very personal life decision, like getting married to somebody. I don't know. I just felt weird about it, but that video blew up and I think it did make some really good points. I just also think it kind of crossed some lines that maybe commentary channels shouldn't be crossing on the people that they're covering. Regardless, to put it as plainly as possible, the release of this video and the popularity of this video, I think really with them. They made a video on Ryan's channel sort of discussing this video and talking about everything and sort of debunking a lot of things. Haley talked about it and made some apologies that she needed to make. But I think that this video really like made them afraid and scared to open up. And here's where this is kind of a dicey situation, because in one sense, I think that a lot of people miss the old Haley, the Haley who was very open and free. Because in one sense, I feel bad that they feel like they can't be, especially Haley, I feel bad that she maybe doesn't feel like she can't be as open and honest on the internet anymore after a video like that. In another sense, I think that a lot of the things that she's hiding, I think that she's hiding them because she knows that they were like not the right thing to do or like not the best decision. Like I just don't feel like you would hide things that much if you didn't have so much to hide, right? So after this video was posted in October, they kind of abandoned their family channel, which is where they had been uploading a ton of wedding content. We got to see Haley like pick out her wedding dress. She literally showed the dress she was gonna buy. They were doing wedding cake testings. They were going to get the tuxes. Like there was so much content surrounding the wedding, and then all of that just stopped and went dead. Now their wedding, we knew, was supposed to be in November of 2020. And after the wedding videos sort of stopped coming, I think most people assumed that the wedding had just gotten postponed due to COVID, because November was kind of when, especially in the US, cases started spiking really high again. So I think most people just assumed the wedding got canceled or postponed. Haley was laying super low after this time, after about November of 2020. She was laying super low. She was only posting a couple videos a week, if that, mostly just one video a week. And same thing with Ryan. Like they were both laying really low. However, in 2021, kind of a bombshell was dropped, which was that they did in fact have their wedding and in November of 2020, and that it appeared, based on the few pictures we saw of the venue and sort of the guests and everything, it appeared that people were not required to wear masks for the wedding, and it appears that they had the wedding completely in secret so as not to get backlash from their fans and supporters. Now here's the thing. I think a lot of people are like, well, it's their wedding. If they don't want to post about it, they don't have to post about it. And you're absolutely right. Like, you don't have to post about your wedding if you don't want to. But like, if your reasoning for not posting about it is because you're not supposed to be having it in the first place, because it could potentially be a super spreader event and could be potentially very dangerous, then I think that's a little different. And also just the fact that they made so much money and made such a big deal about their wedding because of all this content they had created, to make all of this money and get all of this attention for the wedding content and really boost their channels again. Like, it kind of revived life into both of their channels, this wedding. So to use it for all of that clickbait and clout, and then to sort of turn around and be like, well, it's a private affair. Don't ask us about it. It was private. A little weird. On top of that, right when this sort of information dropped, I believe it was Spill Sesh who kind of exposed the whole wedding thing and had all of this proof about the secret wedding they had. I think she was the one who did that. That same week was the week that they were dropping this house flipping series, and they called it the House on Cora Street series. And I think they were trying to do sort of a YouTube original series. Like, they broke it up into episodes. But the problem with this whole House on Cora Street series, that's her like flipping a house, her and Ryan flipping the house together, is that they don't actually do anything. Like, at all. Like, they just go to the house on demo day and they're like, okay, or maybe we're gonna get this house. And then the next episode they have the house and they're renovating it and they're picking out tile for it. And then in the next episode the house is done. And you're like, wait, you don't see them like pick up a hammer. You don't see them do, when they announced that they were doing this renovation series, it very much seemed like it was going to be like, okay, like we are renovating this house with like help from other people. But it turned out to be other people were renovating it and they were just kind of the ones making the decisions. You didn't see them doing any of the work, and the episodes are only like 10 minutes long each. So why they didn't just make it one long video is very confusing. And this series has gotten so much hate. Like, her comment section is an absolute disaster of a place to be. It's really not one positive comment. It's either people asking about the wedding that they aren't talking about and aren't addressing, people saying how much they love Haley but how much they hate the series because it's like not well thought out, not well edited, not well executed, and like not good just in general. A lot of people also are really talking about how it feels like she just jumps, kind of like what I've already said, just jumps from one thing to the other. Like, feels like she was going to be running like a multi-million-dollar business with her clothing company, and then it felt like she was going to be the head of a podcast, and then it felt like she was doing this thing, and now she's doing this homestead thing, which is the pottery thing. And this is all in the span of like a year that all of this happened. So people are just really confused. It feels like you're getting whiplash from following her sort of career moves. And honestly, Ryan and Haley continually not addressing anything to do with this secret wedding. It's very apparent now that they had. Them not addressing that in the slightest is really only hurting them further. Because the longer they go without addressing it where everybody knows, the more disingenuous it's going to seem when they inevitably apologize for having the wedding that they shouldn't have been having in the first place. And all of that kind of brings us to the present. It brings us to now. I think Haley Pham is so interesting, and why I wanted to do this video on her is because I don't think she's like a bad person. I genuinely don't. A lot of the people I do these videos on, I like don't really think are the best people. I don't think she's a bad person. I think she's just a teenager who's kind of got sucked into this lifestyle YouTuber like world, who also is probably not the most informed person on what she's talking about. I also think that a lot of what she's going through in life, like these sort of identity content crises that she's having, are sort of normal growing pains of any teenager who's growing into their late 20s. But the problem for Haley is that this growth has been documented in extreme detail, and because she is so out of touch with her fan base and seemingly out of touch with reality and the world around her, it's causing her audience to not only lose interest in her, but also just like actively dislike her and dislike the things she says. Even most recently, when everything was happening in Texas, and Texas was like freezing over, it was a humanitarian crisis, Haley posted an Instagram picture of her in the snow being like, hey guys, buy my stuff from Homestead so I can package orders on my snow day, which is just like not, you know, horrific, but it's like tone deaf. It feels like a lot of what she does and a lot of the criticism she gets is really just her kind of living in her own world. I don't really know if Haley possesses this sort of internal discussion that she has to have with herself and actually have like a mature discussion with herself to give her fans what they want, which is not her current lifestyle. I kind of already said it, but I think she just wants the best of both worlds. She wants to be seen as this like relatable teen who like doesn't know what she's doing in life, who's like, you know, doesn't know what's going on, but also be seen as this like boss businesswoman who's like a millionaire. And you can't have it both ways, unfortunately. I think she doesn't know how to get back to being who her subscribers want. And I think that's going to really kind of permanently, I'm not going to say permanently because she's still very young, but I think that's going to really impact her channel. And I also think because she's not necessarily the most business minded, I don't know how to put that actually, because it's not that she's not business minded. She doesn't have the sort of tenacity to push through on a business that maybe isn't going to be amazing at first. I don't really see her growing these businesses to be big household names because I think that she really needs to rely on her built-in audience. That's kind of the way that she's grown these businesses in the past. I think without that built-in audience, it's going to be very hard for her to find success in that aspect as well. I think Haley is honestly this sort of cautionary tale about how starting on YouTube at such a young age can really, really impact not only the content you make, but just like your life in general. Like everything about this world of being a massive influencer seems to be a really almost intoxicating thing for young people and really changes them. And I think that's really interesting. And that is kind of the evolution of Haley Pham and her content. Oh my God, we're literally done. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys liked it and enjoyed it. That's gonna be it for me. I love you guys so much. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, or just subscribe, or do neither. Honestly, just so happy you're watching me. Thank you so much for being here. My merch, my social media, and everything I'm wearing on my face will be linked down below, along with some links and information to the rise in Asian hate crimes that have been happening since the start of COVID. Super important topic to stay informed and stay involved about. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!